I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha-Rakat Kodash, double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule Great Millstone well, and Shalom to the hopeful elect and the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. So we have a sure word of prophecy, and the Israelites would do well if you took heed. The Israelites being the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians of North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbeans, which have been scattered throughout the world in many generations because of our sin. We've been exiled out of the land of Israel. Now you have a bunch of counterfeits, all right, in that land, the tiny top, big nose bastards, all right, fulfilling prophecy as the wicked, all right. The Israelites are waking up to the truth of being that we are Israelites, and that mercy comes from Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. All right, and once again, we had a sure word of prophecy. Now, when the Israelites, the southern kingdom, were in captivity under the Assyrian Babylonian, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, received a dream, all right, and his warlocks and witches could not answer his, he required them to tell him of his dream, and they couldn't do it. But Daniel was given the ability from Yahweh through Yahweh Shai to be able to break down his dream, all right. So let me go down. The main point is in the 40s. So let me go down there. All right. So I'll start here. It says in Daniel 2, verse 36, this is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, and he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrian king of Babylon, are a king of kings, for the power of heaven has given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. So Yahweh set Nebuchadnezzar up and to enslave the southern kingdom of Israel. So who gave him that ability? Our power, Yahweh, and Yahweh does these things through Yahweh Shai. Verse 38, and wheresoever the sons of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold, which Babylon was known as a great kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrian king. It says, verse 39, and after thee shall arise another kingdom, which I got the image of his dream right here. So he dreamed of this statue, him being the head. The next is the silver arms, which is the Medo-Persians, which the Medes first ruled, then the Persians. It says in verse 39, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. That's why there's silver and Nebuchadnezzar was gold, because the Medo-Persian Empire is inferior to the Assyrian Babylonian Empire. And another third kingdom of brass, which represented Greece, which shall bear rule over all the earth, starting with Alexander the Greek. It says in verse 40, and the fourth kingdom, which is Rome, the two legs, shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. All right, so the Roman Empire was the most brutal of all the kingdoms, all right, but they were inferior to all the kingdoms before them. which the Lord's prophecy started with the Assyrian Babylonian, then it went to the Medes and the Persians, then the kingdom will go to the Greece, the Greeks under the Alexander the Great and the rest of his men that carried on, and then the Rome. The Roman Empire is the first leg and the second leg. The first leg is the pagan Roman Empire of the ancient world, which conquered the world with the sword and crucified our Lord, Yahushua. The second leg is America, which America is the horde that rides the beast. The beast pertains to the 10 toes, which is the feet. All right? And Yahushua is coming back to destroy these kings. All right? Those 10 toes are represented here in this image by the 7 heads and 10 horns, which is the beast, NATO, which they're European Union, and America is the horde that rides that beast. All right, so we're in the second leg of Rome, being in America, being in captivity under the so-called white race, and they rule the world through the European Union, and they have the teeth of a beast being their military. All right. Now, in the prophecies, this is the end of them. When this beast was to come into existence, this was the sign of their end. All right. It says in Daniel 2, verse 41, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. So you have men, all right, in this beast system, the Edomites, and it's strong and it's weak. The kingdom shall be divided, which they're not confederate, they're divided, that's why Brexit. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, but they're trying to move like the pagan Roman Empire before, trying to take the earth with the sword. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so part of it's strong and part of it's weak. They're divided. Their kingdom is divided. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, which that was revealed really when the King Charles from London came and visited America, and he was talking about the Tea Party, how they fought over taxes against the King of England, right? So it says, during his April 2026 visit to Washington, King Charles III joked that a splendid dinner with President Trump was a significant improvement on the Boston Tea Party. The comment made at a White House state dinner lightheartedly referenced the 1773 incident where American colonists destroyed British tea. See, so they're divided, and that division still carries on in their heart. All right? It says, verse 43 of Daniel 2, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, which you have the United Nations, which takes orders from NATO. They're allies to NATO. It says, NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was supposed to be between Europe and America, is an alliance of countries from Europe and North America, and they are committed to mutual defense as the so-called white race, the wicked, that rule the world, the Edomites, the red devil the Bible speaks of, and security. If you are a citizen of one of the following member states, your country is an official NATO ally. Right, which it says NATO member countries, which I was asking a different. Here it is. It says, while NATO and the United Nations, UN, are not allies in the sense of being part of the same military alliance, they are institutional partners with deeply intertwined legal and operational relationships. NATO's founding document, the North Atlantic Treaty, explicitly states that the alliance operates within the framework of the UN Charter. All right. So the UN is under NATO. NATO is under America. This is how the wicked so-called white race rule the world, and they have mingled themselves with men, the other nations. All right. Verse 43, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they're divided, and this makes them weak. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, with the United Nations, the heathen. Because there's three kinds of men on the earth. There's the sons of the wicked, the so-called white race, the sons of men, which are the other nations, and the sons of God, the Israelite. All right, the princes of the power. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So their kingdom is divided, and it shall fall. It says in verse 44, it says, and in the days of these kings, which were living in the days of these kings ruling the world, shall Yahweh, the power of heaven, set up a kingdom, starting with his son Yahushua, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. We're not going back into slavery. But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. And it shall stand forever. And that's why the image of that image falling, and that stone that's striking it at the feet is Yahushua coming back and judging the world and the wicked ruling it, which is 2 Ezra 13. He's going to destroy the military might of the so-called white race by fire. They're going to be gathered in the valley of slaughter. They're going to be gathered in the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh's Mashaphat. And he's going to Mashaphat him. He's going to judge them by sending his son Yahushua back, and he's going to burn them with fire, dust, and smoke, is what's going to happen to the troops that are gathered in the Valley of Slaughter, Armageddon, a mountain of troops. All that is left from what the prophet Ezra saw was dust and smoke. All right? And the judgment of the great whore is that she be burnt with fire, and that fire is via nuclear fire, via its allies, the NATO nations, the UN nations, and also its enemy, the BRIC nations. It says, for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, which is a chariot, a so-called UFO, which Yahushua rides as a throne, and it's fit for judgment and shoots fire out of it, and that it break in pieces the iron, the Roman Edomite, the brass, the Greek Edomite, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the other nations, the great power had made known to the king that, the great power had made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, after the Nebuchadnezzar, king of Syrian Babylonian Empire. He was given a dream, a vision of the future, of what was going to happen after his kingdom, and what was going to happen to all these heathen when Yahushua returns. Which he felt the terror of the Lord when he was turned into a beast man when he touched the kingdom of heaven by trying to throw those holy Israelite men into the furnace. Once he did that, he crossed the line, and the Lord made him like a beast. You could read about it in Daniel 4. All right? So the Edomite, the wicked that rule the world today, are confederate, and they want to pretty much make us extinct, try to slaughter especially the prophet that remember they are Israel. So Yahweh is going to send Yahushua back, and he's going to destroy the kingdom of the wicked and their military might and put them in subjection under the Israelite. That is the kingdom that Yahweh, through his son Yahushua, is establishing, and it shall be established forever. It says, the great power has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. So we have a sure word of prophecy, and you would do well if you took heed, because it's playing out in our generation. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar, which was a greater king than the king of Babylon the Great. Today, you have Nero 47, which is representation of the king of Babylon, which America is Babylon the Great. All right. But in the ancient world, the original Babylonian kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrian king, when he heard this prophecy from Daniel, he fell down and worshipped Daniel, even though he was a great king. See, the king of Babylon, aka America, is too proud to beg, too proud to ask for forgiveness or anything like that. In fact, they just think they have the most firepower, and that's how they're going to go against the Lord, Yahweh's son, Yahushua, which is the host, the captain of the host of heaven, and he's coming to save the Israelites, who the Edomites think that they could slaughter. All right. So this shows you the different spirits of these heathen. The Edomite, the so-called white race, they are the most proud, and pride cometh before destruction. But the Nebuchadnezzar, Assyrian king, he was a great king, and he humbled himself when he heard the prophecies of what we're living through today. It says, then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. See? The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your power is a power of all the gods, which Yahweh is the Almighty, Yahushua is his son, which he is as a God. When he comes back, he's not going to meet these Edomites as a man. He's going to come as a God, the king of terrors, and he's coming in the glory of his father as the captain of the host of heaven. It says, and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, which we prophesy. And that's what's happening right now. That's why they're building bunkers under the White House, under the Federal Reserve, because they know these prophecies are true. But instead of submitting unto the Israelite elect man that is the prophet, just as these heathen king had done before, these Edomites are going to try to slaughter us. All right. It says, then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, which was a greater kingdom than America. America, here it is. I put in the search of Google, Babylon was the greater nation and kingdom under Nebuchadnezzar compared to the modern day America. It says with 17 plus supporting websites, it says comparing Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar II to the modern United States involves balancing ancient regional dominance with modern global hegemony. While Babylon was arguably the undisputed superpower of its known world, so it was the greatest in the known world back then, its scale, technology, and reach were exponentially smaller than that of the United States. All right, because the United States has more population to work with than Nebuchadnezzar in his time. There's more people alive today on earth than there was back then. So their reach is increased, but the kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar's Assyrian Babylonian kingdom, was superior than Edom's kingdom. Edom's kingdom is the bottom of the barrel, all right? And it's divided. That's why it's in iron and clay, all right? And it shows you through Brexit. Brexit was the British leaving the NATO agreement, all right? So under Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, it says military dominance. Nebuchadnezzar was a formidable conqueror who destroyed Jerusalem, captured Tyre, and brought Syria, Palestine, and Phoenicia under Babylonian control, which America is trying to do now, all right, with dropping bombs all over the place under the small hat leadership. His army unified the entire Fertile Crescent. But what's the king of Babylon today doing? Being America's Babylon the Great, it's causing confusion. It's dividing the people over there, right? Causing war. So the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrian king that ruled ancient Babylon, was greater than America. All right. But America is the kingdom ruling today, which is the Edomites' kingdom, the so-called white race, and it's controlled by the tiny tops. All right. Even when they do White House briefings, you'll see a bunch of tiny tops. All right. Because the tiny top Edomite, Amalekite, they rule the world in wickedness, and America is their throne. All right, and this is why it's going to suffer such a great judgment as prophesied in the Holy Scriptures, and their elite are going to go into captivity, as it has been said. If their beast system came into fruition, so will their judgment. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel, wa abal babal.